there's a way to make an entrance.
This is my destiny.
It was now a conspiracy of witches.
Download Veely today.
We're three sisters who, like most people, had a pretty normal upbringing with no signs that anything was wrong.
But little did we know we were carriers for a genetic condition called Fragile X. And each of us would pass it on to some of our children.
Between us, we have 8 children, and 5 of them have Fragile X.
Angela was a mean older sister, but
Too cool for
yeah. Donna and I always
Still am.
Donna and I always shared a room.
We grew up in Glenfield. Did we?
Yeah.
And we spent some time in Wellington. Dad was in the Navy.
So our family has a genetic condition called Fragile X. We only found out about it about 3 years ago when my nephew Flynn was diagnosed with Fragile X at the age of 7. Following that, my other sister's son, Leo, who was also 7, was diagnosed with Fragile X. Then my niece, who was 11, was diagnosed with Fragile X. At that time, I had a 20-month-old and an 8-month-old, and they were both also diagnosed with Fragile X. Most of the people that I encounter have never heard of Fragile X. I had never heard of it. It's a complicated issue. Everyone has an X chromosome. Men have 1, women have 2. On the X chromosome, a gene produces a protein. When it becomes disrupted, the gene becomes fragile. And that's when you develop Fragile X. 1 in 250 women are carriers. It's 1 in maybe 400 men are carriers. The difference is that when a woman passes on the gene to her children, it expands. When a father passes on to his daughter, it stays the same.
So because girls have 2 X chromosomes, the good chromosome can compensate for the affected chromosome. So the boys only have 1 X chromosome, so once it's damaged, it's damaged. So they're more seriously affected than girls.
There are similarities with autism. The similarities are the sensory issues, behaviour, social anxiety. The main difference is that children with autism can have normal intelligence. Children with Fragile X, there is always an intellectual component, and they have physical characteristics. Generally, they have a large protruding forehead and big ears, a long face. Fragile X kids are really sociable. They are funny, they're friendly, they love being around people. They're so loving. It has been really hard on us as a family. I feel like we all went through it separately. It was just so different for all of us. Like,
There was quite a long time between each child actually being diagnosed, because you thought Leo had been tested, didn't you?
Yeah, initially I thought.
So you took a bit of time
so you
to
thought
get
he was
results.
negative?
So I don't think we thought there's any connection.
I think because Flynn's was initially his vision, I think that sort of clouded it. And
Yeah.
so he was just, no one else had the wandering eyes and stuff.
No.
So it was,
Yeah, I never thought it was something that
no.
Connected.
all of us.
No.
Yeah.
I've got 3 children, Travis, Ashley and Flynn. Flynn has Fragile X. He's 10 years old. He was the first diagnosed. So with Flynn, his milestones did come a bit later. He crawled when he was about 12 months, walked at 18 months. When he was about 5 months old, we noticed he had nystagmus, which is the wandering eyes from side to side. We noticed developmental delays when he was around 3. And so we've seen about 3 paediatricians. So initially, it was all around Flynn's eyesight. The second paediatrician we saw said to us, if anyone tells you he's got autism, they're wrong. So they took a blood test and came back as Fragile X. So that was when he was 7. When he was diagnosed, we came home and Googled and we were just like, yes, 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 oh my goodness. Yeah, and it was just, it made absolute sense.
I texted on and asked because I knew she was going to get some results. I said, how did it go? And you text me back, Fragile X. And I thought she was texting me back to say she's feeling fragile. Yes. So I sent her a text back and said, give me a call when you're ready to talk.
Was Monique diagnosed before Leo?
No, after Leo. But I guess that's the difference in finding out when they're a bit older, because you kind of you already know what that child's like. You kind of already have the acceptance of that child. It just kind of like, that's why she does that. Yeah, baby. I have 3 children. My daughter, who's 14, and my youngest, who is 10, both have Fragile X syndrome. Damien, my middle son, has been tested and he does not have Fragile X, and nor is he a carrier. We're hitting the teenage years with 2 of them, so things can get a little bumpy sometimes.
Stop it. Leo, that's enough, please, mate. Leo, let me pet him. Jeez. Monique's gonna have to pet him too.
That's his favourite place. I wasn't too surprised when Leo was diagnosed, but it was still upsetting. You're still in the back of your mind hoping that it's not going to be. Leo was 7 years old when he was diagnosed and Monique was 11. With my daughter, I definitely felt like something wasn't quite right. I could see that she didn't quite keep up with the other kids. And she had delayed milestones. Particularly I noticed once she was at school. She didn't quite fit in. She desperately wanted to. I asked the paediatrician to test Monique because I felt she could also have Fragile X. So the paediatrician agreed to that. Unfortunately, the genetics weren't that happy to test her, so it went back and forward quite a few times before they agreed. I remember him ringing me and giving me the news that she was full mutation, and that was quite upsetting because I thought she might be a carrier rather than the full mutation.
I've got Fragile X as well as Leo, but it's a little bit different because it affects me less as a girl. Behaviour isn't, I wouldn't say it's like the main thing that I struggle with Fragile X. I would say it's more the learning side of it because I think I find the learning really difficult and then that's what gets me frustrated. Sometimes at a social experience, I'm not always the best with thinking what's right to say and what's not right to say. In the classroom a lot of the time, that's when I would say I struggle the most. People don't notice it, but I really struggle.
I always knew there was something was off, with the kids. And obviously with Flynn, we knew it was his eyes. So we thought it was 2 different things, I guess. We didn't. No.
Connected at all.
Although when Harry was a baby and I was insistent that there was something wrong with him, Andrew kept saying to me, you're only worried because of Flynn and Leo. You're only worried that there's something wrong. Harry is 5 and Ben is 4. Life's really busy. Harry's now at school and Ben goes to kindy 3 days a week. I used to work as a nurse specialist in bone marrow transplant. Would have liked to have gone back to work, but it's just not been possible. Who are we going to see at school? Mr. Watts. Mr. Watts. When Harry was born, he just stopped sleeping during the day and he would literally cry from the minute he woke up in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. And I was told, it's colic, it's reflux, he'll grow out of it. And I'd say to the other mums, like, does your baby cry a lot? And they're like, oh, not really. I'm like, oh, really? My baby cries all day. So he reached all his milestones of sitting and rolling. But when he was about 9 months old, he would rock in his high chair. I was given reassurance and told, you know, he's not autistic, there's nothing wrong with him. I went back to the GP when he was 17 months. He didn't have any words. And by that stage, I think Flynn had been diagnosed. And then Leo got diagnosed not long after. As soon as I heard Fragile X and Googled it, I knew that's what Harry had. But it took a bit longer for Andrew to accept that. After Harry's diagnosis, we got referred to the genetic services. So we went to that appointment with the intention of getting Ben tested. And we were told no. It's his DNA. When he's old enough to request the test himself, then he can get tested. You know, I said to her, this is causing me and my partner mental anguish. She eventually asked us some more questions about Ben, and when we said that he was 13 months now, he wasn't waving or clapping, she said, oh, okay, we'll test him. When I found out that my children had Fragile X and that I was the carrier, I felt guilt. Everyone tells me not to feel guilty because we didn't know about it. But at the end of the day, I gave it to my children.
They are friendly, happy little guys. The only real difficulty from a family's point of view is the socialisation. The boys are fantastic when they go somewhere that they know and they go regularly. They're in a little element. But if it's a fresh, new, different place every time, then that anxiety levels go mad on them.
When something upsets them, it's pretty major. Screaming, crying, biting, kicking, lying on the ground, refusing to move. Generally, we don't go out with the boys unless we're together. So, kids with Fragile X, they have sensory issues with noise or bright lights. My children in particular find going to the mall very hard. It's the lights, the fluorescent lights. They can hear the buzzing of the lights, whereas, you know, most of us don't pay any attention, but their senses are so heightened that they're aware of everything going on around them and the bright lights and the busyness. They always struggle.
So with Flynn, at first we were like, he doesn't have anxieties at all, but he repeats his questions quite a lot. So he always wants to know what's for dinner tonight and what are we doing on Saturday. Anxieties, I think, also showed as he gets louder, as he gets excited and hyped up. Yeah, it's extremes. Yeah, there's like this, they reckon there's this buffer that they sit in that's normal, and ours is like this thick, and Fragile X is down here. And once they're out of it, it's really hard to get them back in.
Social stories and using visuals have changed everything. If we've got something coming up, I write a story and put photos in it of the boys doing what the activity is. So, you know, we are going to the mall, we're going to see Santa, we could sit on his knee, and we read the story a couple of times a day, every day, for about 2 weeks before the activity. And then that really lowers their anxiety, they know what to expect, they know what's going to happen. Generally, happy, smiley, great senses of humour. Very different from autism.
Fragile X children are big imitators, so by having the neurotypical children around them, they will pick up those behaviours. rather than maybe some other behaviours that are less desirable. Yeah. So it's important to be around good role models and other children that will bring out
the right social cues and...
Although that wasn't always easy in itself either, because they do miss the social cues and it can cause a bit of frustration.
Flynn started in a special school and his behaviour started to deteriorate really badly, and we learnt that Fragile X kids imitate a lot. Then we decided to bite the bullet, have a leap of faith and go mainstream.
I think I met Flynn first, and then it was these three.
Yeah, it was really hard to take it in.
Yeah, because then you had no one to play with.
Yeah, but then we came along 3 years later. 3 years.
Yeah.
Cameron came along, and I was like alone, and then Cameron came along, and we were put into the same class of Flynn, and we started talking. He made the whole class laugh, and we've been friends ever since.
Well, I'm kind of funny, but I just play. But I have like stuff on after basketball.
Yeah,
stuff.
we have basketball.
Yeah,
He's really good at basketball.
Yeah. He's getting better.
He's developing some basketball skills, aren't you, Flynn?
Yep.
And
like,
some hair cutting skills.
Yeah, but like I don't.
He cut his own hair last week.
Loves going to school every day. He's loved by all the kids, and they just all know him and make allowances for him. But I like to think also that he gives as much as he takes.
Leo has had a few tough years at school. It hasn't always been easy for him socially. He's probably at about a year 1, year 2 level. He can read sight words. He can't sit and read a book. Maths, he can do some quite basic adding, but with a lot of support. The forest school is an outdoor environment, and they get to build things and dig. It's a one-day school, so he just gets to go 1 day a week.
All right, so have a think. Do you want to go down to the beach and do rope swing crabbing and dam building, or do you want to go up to the garden, bean planting, teepee building, and having a little look at the baby chicks?
We certainly do have children who have a range of disabilities. We've also got very much neurotypical kids who, you know, are just here because they love the outdoors. To learn to use a real tool is so empowering, and so they come away very confident. They've done something that people may not have thought that they could have done previously.
Does smell good, doesn't it? Yeah. Leo, come and have a smell. Would you drink that?
Yeah, I would.
Smells pretty good, but we need some cups.
Leo's the first student that I've taught with Fragile X. Leo is a bit more reserved, and so it's hard always to figure out exactly what he needs because he doesn't really let us in as much as some of the other kids.
Maybe put it on sprinkle.
When he is working, he's very focused to a point where he can be a real perfectionist.
Kindly can't.
I've had a few meltdowns with more the frustration when something doesn't go according to plan.
I just think it's a good place to build his self-esteem.
Might be nice to share.
Because I feel at school every day he must really know that he's struggling and doesn't quite get things the way the other kids do.
There's this culture here where there's kind of no judgment, and so for our children that do have differences, they are included, where we all just help each other out.
Have you had your tablets? Yes. Have you had your breakfast?
Yes.
Are you dressed?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
You're still in your pyjamas?
Yes.
Have you been to the toilet? Yes. What day is it?
Friday.
It's...
Mummy.
Wednesday.
Have a school.
Yeah, and Benny goes...
Kindy.
boys follow a visual chart in the morning. I have pictures up on the wall of their breakfast bowl, them getting dressed, a picture of the toilet. And then he knows what he has to do to get ready for the day. You know, and I often think of my sister's kids who weren't diagnosed until 7. They missed out on all that early intervention. So Donna introduced me to Andrea, who's the Executive Director of Fragile X New Zealand. And yeah, I've just gotten more involved.
Everyone's found her.
Since then, yeah, so I'm now on the board.
You know, in research, there's been a lot of research happened in Fragile X because it's the most common single gene cause of autism. And so we know a lot about the impact of Fragile X on the brain. I work for Fragile X New Zealand. My job really is just being frontline for the organisation. When families ring, when they're newly diagnosed or when they come across issues they want more information about, when professionals call wanting information, and that can be education, health or disability sector organisations. So anxiety, if you don't take anything away from today other than understanding what the huge impact that anxiety has on people affected by Fragile X. So I'm going to talk to the staff to help them to understand how Harry learns, how Fragile X affects Harry, and then we present that information to the school around. These are the strategies and interventions and supports that we know will make a difference for Harry. Understand that. So we see that attention is impacted, so we see a little bit of hyperactivity, so trouble initiating tasks, so you need to support beginnings of tasks. For children with Fragile X, the adjust right zone is very small, and they sit quite heightened a lot of the time, and they can flip into that hyperarousal state really quickly and very often. Ideally, we're going to act before he goes into hyperarousal. So we'll be putting a sensory diet into the day. You know, if he goes out and he swings for a bit, you'll find then you can come back and he'll be really well regulated to do some learning.
Go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Eric's been with us for exactly 1 week. Before that, he started doing some class visits with his mum, Bronnie, and she did an amazing job preparing Harry for school. So she came in, took pictures of everything, his early morning routine, his locker, the classroom, so that when he started, he had all these pictures to prepare him for school. And she really wanted us to know exactly everything there is to know about Harry. So she made this wonderful book. It's a book about me, and I found this very helpful as his teacher. The one thing that was pointed out to us was his ear. One of his ears, I think it's his right ear, goes red when he's anxious. So that's great for me to be able to see if he's getting anxious.
He can get quite anxious if the noise builds up too much. You can see he possibly might start biting into his hand, or he moving around quite quickly, or if you give him a book, he's rustling through the pages quite quickly, and that's kind of signs where he just needs a little bit of time out to sort of regulate himself and sort of come back to being able to come back into the classroom. He likes just touching him there. It's just like that sensory just keeps him calm. It works quite a lot.
Well, he's settling down a lot quicker than I expected. He's following instructions and he's getting into his routine, and he seems very happy here with all the children.
We don't get together so much these days, do we?
Like noisy.
Yeah.
They all hype each other up, and suddenly the younger boys, it gets too much for them, and they struggle to cope with the noise and stuff.
Yeah. So it often has to be quick family get-togethers.
Do you know that Harry has sleep in your bed?
Got hopes for the future, but we don't have any idea what the reality will be. My only hope is that he can be as independent as possible, have a job, something to get up for in the morning. And be in the community. He loves people and...
Just to be, I guess, happy in themselves, because Leo won't be a doctor or a scientist, doesn't mean he'll be any less happy than anyone else. We don't know what that will be yet.
Got to find it.
Yeah, I think there will be something. At least these days, people are more accepting, and hopefully those opportunities will be there. And you do hope by these guys attending a mainstream school that those children that have gone to school with them will be more accepting, and then maybe as adults they might look to employ maybe somebody like these guys. So hopefully that's opening a new thing of acceptance. So we just have to wait and see.
Right, you got about 10 seconds. Count of three, we say cheese. 1, 2, 3.
Yes!
There you go.